So let's start with the first American scuba space event. So here I hope to answer the question to the eternal mystery of why he looks like he is floating around with the toilet edited out by the special effects team. Now first up I want to say NASA are going for the big sell here. This is important to their future. The public have to buy this, and in order to get the best special effects, this is not done live. The audio with the control room uses the live talk-over tool of deception. In the Space Shuttle era they worked out how to do the spacewalks live and were able to extend the coverage substantially. I will cover how shortly. So here we see our brave spacewalker leaking like a sieve during training. Do NASA not have a suit that can hold pressure underwater? Are we to believe that they have a suit that can hold pressure in the rigors of space, but do not have a suit that can hold pressure in the pool? This is just a small perversity on a long list of perverse items we find with NASA. The public would reasonably expect to see pressure on the spacesuit given that they're in a vacuum, and NASA dutifully fulfilled that expectation. Here he is being popped out of the water, unable to move his limbs properly due to the pressure of the suit being inflated, and taking that infamous form and difficulty associated with the first spacewalk. So they recorded him underwater, isolated his image, then in this scene superimposed him onto the cartoon ball background. The tech to do this was available at the time, provided it was not done live, and there is no proof whatsoever that this was performed live. So here we see them staging a scene, and all you need to do is exchange the lighting for sodium vapor lighting, and you can achieve any matte you like. The sodium vapor camera was first used in cinema production for Mary Poppins, and was applauded for its ability to have clean definition and fine detailing. In the Mary Poppins film, the detailing was so fine they were able to have her wear a veil, and the sodium vapor process could even detail smoke. Here we see our first space air bubbles racing towards the top of the pool. I think NASA saw potential in this method of fakery and started as they meant to continue. There is too little footage from Skylab to warrant a substantial explanation. There could have been in the scuba space tank with back screen projection for the Earth. The live talk-over tool of deception may have been used, combined with the post-production video footage with the props and subaquanauts being recorded in the pool, using the sodium vapor camera technique to get the raw footage of apparent weightlessness, and a backdrop of the Earth being added in post-production. There is a good chance they used both techniques, of some live footage and some post-production footage. The purpose of my expose of the Shuttle era is to focus on the how of the fraud. So having seen that we can explain all the Skylab and Gemini scuba tank activities with the moving image special effects of their era and the tools of deception, we can move straight on to the Shuttle era. God sometimes throws me a straight ball as I research the how of the Space Shuttle fraud. Here, having figured out they were using back-screen projection, I caught this break on the materials that can be used for this trick. For anyone trying this at home, please note he mentions it is the frosted shower curtains, and also note there are 3 projectors on the 3 screens. This is important for the scale NASA were using. They would have needed to use multiple projectors, linked in unison to cover the necessary area for the projection of the Earth. Wikipedia tells us they could link 3 projectors for 1 screen using the rear projection effect to boost the resolution as early as 1933. So on NASA's budget in 1970, linking various screen projections together to give a much larger overall projection was easily possible. The significance of this material is that NASA could lay the shower screen on the surface of the pool and project onto the back of it.
So I researched the death out of them and tried to figure out a cheap way to make them or something. And what I came up with, what you saw last week and thought was professional, I made out of shower curtains and duct tape.
Now let's move straight on to the proof that this is the method being used. This footage comes from the STS-51D FOIA request. Fanboys, I'm not citing this as proof of fraud, rather this is for those that have been paying attention and already know it is a fraud. This is just proof of technique. So here we're looking straight up at the surface of the pool. The shower curtain projection will be no more than a few meters away from the top of the OMS pod. We have lighting coming from the side to represent the sun. However, we also have shadow emanating from the light of the rear screen projector that manifests here, distributed as such that the light source is above. As the camera pans around, we get to see the side of the pool, which I suspect is covered with a light-absorbing material. Let me just turn that around so we have it the right side up. And now I have zoomed in so we can see the edge of the pool and the shower curtain in close-up. We can see that any light spilling through and reflecting off the top of the edge of the pool can be passed off as the limb of the Earth. Note also is a circular edge to the pool rather than the GoPro effect.
And every day I just pinch myself and think this can't be real. I told Jeff and Dave as they came back in from the EVA that I had watched the whole thing from the windows on the flight deck. And all the time I was watching, I thought, this can't be real. I'm not here. I'm not seeing this. This is on TV. And I'm sure after we all get back, we're going to feel the same way. That didn't really happen.
So in this clip, the guy just comes out and says he's working in the pool. And I do believe him when he says the pool he is working in is deeper than the training pool. Now, fanboys, I watched clips like this when I was a believer, and I thought, wow, these guys are cool under pressure. So I understand your perspective. It just amuses me that the spell is so powerful they can tell you how it is done and you just cannot comprehend it. A faith that soothes and all of that.
Got a good shot of Mother Earth behind you there, Story. Deeper pool, and I've been used to working in. That's great, comparing the spacewalk to his earthly training in the water tank, saying it's a little deeper pool than he's used to working in.
In this scene, the shuttle is horizontal in the pool, and there seems to be no angle of sunlight. The lighting and shadowing seems to be coming directly from the surface of the pool. As the camera pulls back, we get to see the edge of the circular pool. Now, it's not all terrible film quality from NASA, and this is why we have such a problem breaking the spell the fanboys are under. This is recorded in 1984 using the IMAX camera and was played in the IMAX cinemas. I know this because on the longer version of this clip, which I foolishly did not save and now can't find, I saw a fanboy swooning of this era and his visit to the IMAX cinema and stating how impossible it is to fake this quality of footage in 1984. Therefore, globe. The quantity of live footage from a spacewalk, even to the control room, was way lower in 1984 than it is nowadays, as revealed from my Mission 16 FOIA request. So as I flip this over, it does not look so impressive, and we know this is a post-production release, i.e. there was never any live footage from the IMAX camera, internal nor external. My research has confirmed the sodium vapor process can be used on the IMAX camera, and there are several ways this footage could have been produced. The special effects team could have used a wide-angle effect from high-altitude footage to supply a high-quality backdrop of the Earth. However, one thing I've learned about Hollywood is that they like to keep things in easily controlled conditions as much as possible, and I strongly prefer the idea that this was a very detailed glass or film painting. The space scuba divers would have been recorded in the pool with the sodium vapor technique to achieve the matte, and then the two spliced together. The quantity of this high quality imagery will be very limited due to the bulky and weighty nature of the film involved. So let's compare that dramatic and impressive post-production footage from 1984 to this extended live broadcast from 1993, almost a decade later. Having utterly sold the idea of the spacewalk to the general public with the impressive post-production view from 1984, let me just adjust the image so we can enjoy a better view of the edge of the pool. The public were now treated to extended live coverage of the spacewalks, with the low quality they were already used to from other live spacewalks that were of much shorter length. All live productions are high risk and ultimately should have been the downfall of NASA. However, it is the combination of the tools and the high-mindedness of the public that keeps the fantasy secure. The low vision quality of the live broadcast, or crapo vision as I like to call it, helped to hide many a sin. For the modern day poolside activity, the computer technology exists to render in the Earth live in any position they choose. I do wonder if they have a large green screen on the side of the pool. Given the length of the ISS, this would save on the depth of the pool, although only a percentage of the ISS gets shown in each walk. They could be projecting onto acrylic glass at the side of the pool, or onto the top of the pool using more advanced back-screen projection technology, rendering in high definition. And I wonder this because of the use of the GoPro cameras by the aquanauts. It would be easier if the projection of the Earth was live in the pool with them, whether it be at the side or on the top. That said, I suspect the technique varies from pool walk to pool walk, depending on how much the ISS they need to show in the majority of the scenes and what technology is available at any given time. These events now span decades. So a common objection I hear is that if they were filming in a pool, then you would get residue of the lighting passing through the medium of the water, and then fanboys confidently boast that this just does not happen. Here is some evidence to the contrary. There are many examples of this type of imagery. I would go so far as to say that poor vision quality is the norm for medium to long range shots. Now there are rare examples of the exception to the rule, and I welcome regular viewers of my channel and fanboys to post links and timestamps if they find any like this. I suspect this view is a post-production recording and is spliced into the live footage. Honestly, this is what all the footage should look like. From this same spacewalk we get images like this and like this. The bubbles have been covered by other researchers, and I have historically been more interested in the internal footage. However, I want to talk about NASA managing your expectations. The general public's expectation of NASA are so low, they generally do not complain despite some of the appalling footage they are fed. We have seen how the post-production view in 1984 is in orders of magnitude greater than the live view 35 years later, despite billions of dollars spent in between those dates and huge improvements in camera and communications technology. We know that the lower the image quality, the easier it is to hide errors, and it makes it harder to detect fraud. The standard of imagery for the live broadcast is set by the restrictions of the method of fakery being used, and the technology available to deliver those effects rather than the technology available to deliver the broadcast. Further, the errors we get from the internal footage are consistent with the method of fakery being used. And the errors and limitations we get from the spacewalks are consistent with the methods of fakery being used, which makes a very powerful argument for a pattern of fraud. So what is up with this pink? We get 15 minutes of it from the pool walk from 2013. 15 minutes means it cannot be a sunset light effect, and it cannot be a camera effect because we get glimpses of it from the head cam. Further, evidence it is not a transmission error is the fact that we do not get the bathed in pink effect from the internal footage. Rather, we get the errors consistent with the technology they are using to fake that aspect, adding to the evidence of a pattern of fraud. I think the bathed in pink error started as a live rendering error and is as grievous of an error as the one we are watching now for the internal footage, and gives a clue to the how of the external fraud. We also see the bathed in pink effect in other walks as well. However, this particular one I think was done deliberately. Space is exactly what NASA tells us it is, according to their fanboys, and an error can become the norm if NASA says this is so. In my research into the chroma key, the name Magic Pink came up. Further investigation revealed little else, and it seems to be not very popular in the movie industry. As soon as I heard the word Magic Pink though, I thought of NASA. What I think is going on here is NASA are lighting the pool with pinks and yellows, then extracting those colours out live. I think at some stage the filter malfunctioned, and NASA, seeing a satisfactory level of apologetics going on from the fanboys, chose to make it a regular thing. I have no idea what the apologetics are. So this is what the image looks like as I remove the pink colour, and we can see that this is a normal type of view we get from NASA. This would help to remove the rays of light from the long views. The level of technology NASA has, they could easily do better than me. I think removing specific lighting colours live may be the technology that allowed them to perform longer live coverage of spacewalks. So yellow is the colour of sodium vapour lighting. We see in this walk from 2017 they were clearly having issues with their live rendering tech. From the same mission we see the yellow leaking through on the edges of the equipment, but we see the Earth very nicely. So I've turned the image so we can enjoy a good view of the pool edge. I think this is what the spacewalk mostly looked like in the pool. I.e., this is how the back screen projection of the Earth was actually lit on this particular spacewalk. By removing the yellow, I can isolate the Earth, but you can see the yellow leaking through on the edges. I suspect that NASA are backfilling the Earth live whilst minimizing light rays, only in this scene the tech is not working properly. From this same scene, I can also remove the colour completely. Although we get a fair amount of colour views from the STS-61 scuba walk, we do also get a lot of black and white views. And fanboys, I know, it's hard communicating with space. The exact significance of lighting in magic pink and sodium vapor yellow is hard for me to say, but the fact these specific lighting anomalies are observed in external footage only is not insignificant, and is evidence consistent with a fraud, as we do not get this type of camera or transmission error from the internal footage. So here we have a spacewalk from 2020. This is not the whole of the ISS, but again we see the yellow leaking through. I think that this yellow effect on the edges is because the tone of yellow they used for the lighting is too strong, and the live computer editing software is struggling to remove it fully. In very clear water, Wikipedia tells me you can see up to 80 meters, and that is without filtering the water to remove extra particulates. This scene is 30 meters tops and is not the whole of the station. If we take the guy in the middle as 2 meters, a very rough calculation, given he is in the middle of the scene, so we can use that size as the perspective moves towards us and away from us from his position, says that this is less than 30 meters view. The Earth may or may not be projected in live, and if it were not, if they are still using backscreen technology in this particular pool walk, it is also no more than 30 meters away. Although I have asked for footage that is of high quality imagery of spacewalks, I also have to ask that you discern if it is live footage or post-production footage. Here we are watching excerpts from live footage and post-production footage from the headcam view of the same spacewalk. The Apologetics Class 101 for NASA is a standard excuse of transmission issues. However, is this a transmission issue? Or is this magic pink the colour of the lighting they use to remove the effects of light rays in the water? So here we have the live view of Earth with supposedly the sun in view, and the image is all washed out.
A little bright from the helmet camera of Thomas Pesquet, again identified by the number 20 at the bottom corner of the screen.
And here we have the post-production view from the same spacewalk with the supposed sun and Earth in view, looking all magnificent. So please use some discernment when posting links and think about what it is you are watching. So which is it, NASA? Can the cameras handle a direct view of the sun and difficult lighting conditions, or not? Not when it is live, apparently. The image quality is as low as you like on a video downlink. In the spirit of pink being the new normal and an error becoming the acceptable standard, I think NASA are so satisfied by the apologetics for the space bubbles, which they call ice crystals, they do not even bother to remove them from the post-production views. When heading out to do a spacewalk, there is nothing like doing boastful dances and Satan worshipping just before you head out the door. Facing huge risks and a horrible death, the only scenario where this would be likely conduct is if you're really heading into a pool. Spacewalks cover decades and different techniques would have been employed throughout the years. However, I do think they were always done in the pool, even to this day. In the Space Shuttle era, I'm confident they were using backscreen projection on the top of the pool. Bubbles have been covered extensively by others, so it only seems right to rip off their work. Link to the video will be in the description.
some shower air bubbles. There you go. It's so many that the guy put the hand in front of the camera trying to hide. There were too many, but they keep flowing. It's just too many. Because they keep flowing out of the ISS, the guy decided to change the camera to another view. Hello, subaquatic man.
Uploading. Processing. System malfunction.
The big advantage we have with the race to fake space is that those wishing to manipulate our minds were very keen to use the special effects required to fake space in regular movies to entertain us whilst moving us gradually towards total spiritual degradation, to insert ideas and concepts into our minds, as well as shape and manipulate culture, which is more powerfully achieved when you're in a state of being wowed by the special effects. Star Wars, Jurassic Park and the Marvel movies being three good examples. Thus, through the technological advances in the movie industry and people's desire to know how movies were made, there was an inability to hide the techniques used for very long. We have a pretty good timestamp of developments in the spell casting techniques. Further, the developments in post-production movie work track very well with what we see from the race to fake space. Where NASA had the upper hand is in the developments in technology that they were not so desperate to use for the movie industry. An example of this is live CGI and augmented reality, which is now a well understood phenomenon. However, that technology afforded NASA an advantage in searing the idea of space into the minds of men and children, because the gap we see between the live CGI and augmented reality technology being used in the live interviews on the ISS to the time when those techniques were understood through the errors we see and the publicizing of the technology being used is one of the greatest gaps NASA had between a technology being used and a common use for it in a complementary industry, and can be marked down as a golden era for the race to destroy the minds of men. A modern day example of a tech not fully understood but still being used to confound the unthinking public is that of the ISS flyby. You can see the ISS from the Earth, you effing retard, comes the chant from the fanboys, as they fail to understand that watching an ISS flyby in your garden and then watching the internal and external footage from the ISS on your TV does not make the TV footage real, nor does that flyby object prove the existence of the ISS. just as the people watching the launch of the Atlas rocket we are watching now failed to understand that just because they saw a rocket launch in an upward direction does not mean that it went to space, and when they went home to watch it again on their TVs, a simple cut in the video allowed the use of special effects to complete the spell, and watching the launch does not make the latter footage real. Failing to understand the advanced tech being used for the flyby is no different in principle than all the other magic used in the movie productions that put them under the spell in the first place. With the flyby ISS, it is now understood that drone technology is highly advanced, and holographic tech has been revealed, and whatever it is that is whizzing past us in the skies above, I guarantee you there will be either a reveal on the tech as it is used for other purposes, or an error in that tech which will expose that aspect of the fraud at some point in the future, and still the fanboys will not understand it because they do not want the spell broken. We're going to take a look at the Gemini era external views first, because the external Mercury footage, aside from the separation special effect we just watched, is very simple and is merely high altitude footage with a wide angle effect. We are also going to take a look at two camera techniques, both available in the Gemini era, that greatly helped the external view when faking space. Both cameras were owned by Disney. They were the sodium vapor camera and the multiplane camera. We will also take a look at the front and rear screen projection techniques, which have been around for a while at this point. The Gemini footage was the footage that sold the idea of space travel to the general public, and in Gemini 4 we see the first American spacewalk. Through high altitude balloon footage we now understand the effect a lens can have on the horizon line, so we can comprehend the footage NASA showed that previously was not questioned. So let's take a very quick look at the launch, which was self-evidently shot with a wide-angle lens, giving the distinctive variable curve, and the image gets cut just before it fully flattens out. Shortly before the Gemini days, the X-15 was breaking all sorts of records for high-altitude flight, and provided high-quality footage for NASA to use from the rear tail wing recorders, which was never released to the public. The X-15 also had a downward-pointing camera, which was the inspiration for many an artist, as future images of Earth inevitably became more of a Hollywood special effect. However, it was the X-15 high-altitude footage that sold the idea of space travel to the public. No reason it wouldn't. It was spectacular footage, and with only the crappy cockpit footage from the X-15 available for the public to compare it to, it was a very simple sell. Here we see the footage flipped into reality mode, with the wide-angle effect flattening out as the X-15 stabilizes, and the flat nature of our reality is revealed. So we have seen how the footage from the X-15, shot with a wide-angle lens, was used to fool the people into the idea that NASA was circling a ball. And just very quickly, there is some return to Earth Gemini footage that seems to have more space than those cameras I just highlighted, giving the effect of a camera behind a window. So here is an image of the bubble they could put around the camera for that effect.